Oh, hello there. Today we are going to have as our guest today on Finding Fantasy podcast, Regina Brownell, Romanticist. She writes romantic novels. Good stuff too. Let me just it's fake.
Yep.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining my podcast.
Yes, thank you for
Okay.
having me.
Oh man, it's an absolute pleasure. Our first romance author. Please I have like Invisalign, so it's a little I don't know if you could tell, but it's a
Not
little
at all.
difficult. All right, good. So it's working.
Take your time.
But sometimes it's hard to speak. Anyway, so yeah. So how long have you been writing romance novels?
I'd like to say I've been writing since I was about 10, but seriously, since I want to say like right after my oldest was born, I decided that I wanted to try. I was writing a lot of young adult romance at the time, a lot of fan fiction, and I decided let me try my own thing. So it started with that, and I got uh, Wattpad. I saw Wattpad, which is a social media site for people who just want to post their poems, stories, different things like that. So I put on one of my fanfics, and it did okay. So then I just started writing my own and went from there.
That's incredible. Wow. And you brought some of them with you, right?
I did. These were my first two books. This is my debut, The 2 Week Promise.
That's
This came out
awesome.
September 7th. And this one is my Christmas novel that came out in November.
And that's like a Hallmark sort of
Yes, it's
thing.
Hallmark with a little spice.
That is so cool. All right, we're gonna learn more about those books too. I'm very excited about this one. All right, so as you know, we're in a Finding Fantasy podcast, and what this is all about is finding fantasy in everyday life.
Mhm.
And we're going to find out if there's fantasy in the romance world. So, all you romantic people out there, turn it off now. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right, so first of all, what is fantasy to you? I ask everybody this.
I feel like fantasy is just anything you can lose yourself in. Like it could be, it doesn't even have to be the fantasy genre. It could be romance or thriller, just anything that just takes you away from the real world.
I love that. That kind of innocent escapism
Mm-hmm.
in a way. Yeah,
It's the
I,
best part of it.
it is the best part of it. I get that a lot, and that's how I feel of it too. um, Fantasy from different people that I've spoken to. Um, Sometimes fantasy can just be something that can't exist in reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it
Yep.
is. It could be anything. So it doesn't have to be like
Wizards
dark
and
fantasy.
yeah, it
What?
doesn't have like be like wizards or
No,
magic. It
exactly.
just
If it's make believe,
yeah.
it's fantasy in a sense. So, as a romance author yourself, why are romance series so popular today, particularly
Mhm.
with women?
Yes. Well, that I think is because in a romance book, it has to have a happily ever after or happy for now. And I feel like with, the world how it is today, you kind of we want that escape to feel something good in the world. And sometimes you just need that, you know what I mean? Like this world is crazy. And then you go and you read these books and it's not really about the ending, it's about the journey that the characters take, and you just kind of like, I don't know, it makes you feel so many different things. Like I just read a book recently, and while it was probably one of the most saddest books I'll ever read, at the end it was happy, and it takes you on an emotional journey. And I think a lot of women just are they go right to that.
I want to ask you too. That's a really good point. Do people who read romance, is it the journey? Is the journey as important as the landing, as the ending?
I feel like the journey is the best part because the characters, they grow so much throughout. And I mean, of course, the ending is important, but I feel like it's how they get there that's the most important.
Right. That's excellent. All right. So I guess we sort of talked about this a little bit, but can romance be considered a type of fantasy?
I think so because there are a lot of different types of romance. You have paranormal romance. You
That's
have,
true.
you have regular romance where it could happen in the real world, but there's a lot of I'm going into the more like erotica level of it. Like you just there's so many different types that I feel like it's fantasy.
That Fifty
Like
Shades of Grey series was insane.
well, yeah,
I was in a
for its time, yes.
for its time.
Now,
I was in I was in a small bookstore and I'm looking at books. This is in Port Jefferson, I think. And this girl, I've told the story before. This girl has all like three of them,
mm,
and she puts them on the counter and says, "I'd like to buy these." And as she's paying for them, she asks the woman, "Are these good?" What the? You read the back. It's the hype of it, and
yeah,
it can
it's
really
the hype.
grip you.
Yep, it can.
And what's interesting too about romance and fantasy is, I teach my kids. We just finished the Middle Ages,
Okay,
medieval times,
yeah,
and a lot of that romance
isn't
is in there.
yes, oh yeah.
Like the knight in shining armor and the maiden.
Mm. There's a huge like love for that kind of actually romance. Like what I wouldn't say historical, more like like all those type of like Bridgerton and different things like that, like the historical romance. I think it's
Yes,
a very big genre.
it really is. And the sad thing is, in
Mm.
reality, I mean, can't even speak. See, told you. In reality, um, a lot of that was made as an escape then,
Mm-hmm.
because that really wasn't the way things were.
Yeah.
I mean, women hardly had any freedom, even
Yeah.
in the household. And the knights were nobles. You couldn't tell them no. You couldn't say what to them. So in a way, it was even fantasy during that time.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. Okay, so now it's time. Since we covered
Stop.
fantasy and romance, we made it. Um, so what are your books generally about? Because you did say this was like
Yes.
a Hallmark, but a spicy
Yes. Mine
thing.
are more contemporary. They take place in the kind of the real world, I guess you could say. My first book is called The 2 Week Promise, and it was about a woman who falls in love with her best friend's brother. And they grew up together and everything, so like her crush on him was always there, and he kind of liked her too. But the two girls made a friendship rule that they would not date each other's siblings because her best friend was hurt by her own sibling.
Oh my.
So then it ends up the night of her best friend's wedding is the night that they end up getting together. And they decide to do a 2 week secret relationship while the friend is on the honeymoon. And then they said, when she comes back, we're done. We're not going to talk about it ever again. But
Jeez. And that was the 2 week
that was a
promise.
2 week promise. And
Wow.
the Christmas one is a cute little Hallmark movie where her mom is pressuring her to go out on dates and find a man for Christmas. And she goes on all these dates that her mom sets her up on, and she finds this guy that's really great, but they both have some past history with their relationships that kind of tear them apart a little bit.
That sounds
And
like
then
it belongs with Hallmark.
yes,
100%.
and then I
What are you
have
waiting for, Hallmark?
I know,
One
right?
I would actually
Everyone keeps
probably
saying.
watch fully.
And then I do have a third one coming out this Thursday. It's called Capturing His Heart, and it actually goes really well with your fantasy podcast because in it it's her brother's friend who from high school back from high school. They used to play D&D, and so she used to make fun of them because she's like, oh, you're so nerdy, whatever. So then a couple years later, once they're all adults now, she comes back because she loses her job in the city and she can't afford an apartment in Manhattan.
Please, if
City.
anyone's
Yeah,
not from New
exactly,
York,
right?
you don't know.
So she comes back home, and she ends up working at his photography studio, not even realizing it that it's his dad's studio. And she's like, I'm sorry for everything I did. I really am looking for a job. And he hires her, and the two just they start to fall for each other. He's always kind of liked her, even though she teased him, but
That is so cool.
and
Wow.
there's a lot of D&D stuff in it and a lot of like nerdy references because she falls for the nerdy kid. And
What inspired you to do that with the
um
the whole D&D reference?
I want to say it's because of my husband, which
Who I know.
I just kind of based it I off of kind of him a little bit, but I thought it was funny because like I made her be she's like a journalist, kind of, it's a writer, so
Yeah,
and I just thought it would be fun to explore, and I was really interested in learning more about D&D. So
that is so cool. Yeah, that's a real rabbit hole
yeah, it was
that you
like,
can go
speaking of
down.
fantasy.
I can't believe that it's coming back after all this
It
time.
is, yeah. They
It's
actually have,
amazing.
in this library, they have adult D&D games.
Incredible.
Yep.
Wow. This is the Sachem
Public
Library,
library.
or
Yep.
yeah, it's amazing. Um, okay. And that comes out what day?
That comes out on the March 23rd, so
March
Thursday.
23rd. Oh my gosh. And this is going to be on Amazon.
Yes, it is on Amazon. It's on pre-sale right now on Amazon, like Amazon UK. It's also on Barnes and Noble, but mostly people buy it from Amazon. But it's because it's all online retailers. So
Oh, that's great. I'm throwing the link in there, so check it out. All right. So, I asked this of everybody because it's just so interesting. It really sort of shows you everyone's so different, but yet again, we're all so alike.
mhm.
Uh, so, if you were in a fantasy book, game, or film, which one would that be?
This one is kind of hard. I'd have to say I'd want to be a companion in Doctor Who.
Oh, really?
Although I'd probably get.
Wow. Oh, that's all part of the fun.
I know, right?
Oh my
I
gosh.
thought that would be fun.
From any kind of era of Doctor Who, or does it matter?
If I'm with 10, I'm happy.
Oh, okay. See, I think that's a lot of people have said that actually. All right. So let's just go with that. So if you're in that, are you a warrior, archer,
Oh
sorcerer?
man,
What else are you? Are you a
I'll just be his
scientist,
companion.
a companion, like just yourself?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
He can find me, and I'll be his Rose.
And then you'll make a book together.
I'll make a book.
Sorry. Sometimes I forget we're in the library. All right. Uh, oh my gosh. I feel like this was like 5 minutes long.
I know.
We're having a good time. It's incredible. Um, so before we get to the end, do you have any questions for me?
I just wanted to know what made you want to start writing, because I know you have a couple of books out, and just was wondering.
Yeah, you know what? It's similar to what you were saying. It's really funny because as you were telling me, you started to write when you were very young. You just had this feeling you wanted to write your own thing, have your own story. That's kind of
Yeah.
how I felt. I did the same thing. I still have them at home somewhere.
So do
So
I.
you do too,
I
right?
do.
Do you look at them sometimes?
Sometimes, and I'm like, what is this?
Why did I do this? But it's really cute
It
though, right?
is,
That's where
yeah.
you were at the time.
Yeah.
It shows a little bit of my innocence too. And when I was trying to be a little dark, I'm like, ah, you little pansy, you're not dark. What are you trying to
You're
do?
not dark there.
Oh, okay. But yeah, man, this was really fun. I
Yeah.
really knew. I'm looking at all of your updates to your book and how successful you've been. I mean, looking at all the people who have read your work. It's a fantastic
Yeah,
thing. So
I'm
um,
very thankful for everyone who has.
absolutely, they're very loyal. You could see that they love this genre. They
Mhm.
love your writing. So I'm really glad that you were agreeable to do this, and I think a
Yes,
lot
of
of people
course.
are going to like this actually.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, and thank you, Sachem Library. The second library I've been to that's been open to us, so that's
Yeah.
great. All right,
All right, thank you.
see you guys later. Check out our stuff.